What's interesting right now, and you know, I think everything this year is going to be about the ETF. The rollout of this ETF. Now we have
Mm-hmm.
a Hong Kong ETF, but I'm really mainly focused on the US ETF right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think we're in this very secular big bull market for Bitcoin, and that's kind of my general thesis is that we're in the fourth bull market for
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin, and we're not at the very beginning of it either. We're sort of in the maybe a third of the way into it, maybe half, not a half, but a third to 20% of the way in. That's what I view.
In a recent interview on relAI Learn, Fred Krueger discusses three key topics: Bitcoin's fourth bull market, the significance of the upcoming Bitcoin ETF in the US, and how institutional interest will propel the next major wave of adoption. At the time of this conversation, Bitcoin is trading at around $62,000, reflecting a 2% decrease over the last 24 hours and a 1% decline over the past week. As we approach crucial regulatory moments such as the 2024 election and further ETF developments, the future of Bitcoin appears more promising than ever.
Stop. You don't have time. Don't miss out this 2025 bull run. Educate yourself first ahead of the crowd. We have created the ultimate step-by-step crypto cheat guide that will guide you this bull run. Unlock the secrets of crypto and make smarter investments today. Now by clicking on the link below to get your exclusive copy just under $10.
I made a lot of money in tech, and I participated in crypto along the way, but I didn't get Bitcoin religion until 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And now I would consider myself a Bitcoiner. And I was not very active on Twitter at all until maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And I just didn't really have anything to add to the general discussion. And in December, I basically, when the ETFs they hadn't quite launched, but they were sort of prepping to launch, I made a few videos just sort of saying to people, listen, I think this is a much bigger deal than is kind of generally recognized at the time. And I said, you really need, everybody's sort of getting this wrong. And I said, the Bitcoiners are getting this wrong because they're focused on Wall Street as the enemy. And they're sort of thinking self-custody and, Wall Street bad, JP Morgan bad, banks bad, the system bad. And Wall Street underestimated because they're just thinking, okay, this is just another ETF. So what? This is, we have, 1,000 of these things. This is just the newest flavor of the month. Let's get it over with and let's make some money. And they neither side really understood this, the significance of this. And I just realized that my background was very unique, right? Because there's not that many people, I would say, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but like the number of people who were in my position on Wall Street kind of, at the time I was there, or even since, it's, a couple hundred people, who are in that kind of managing that kind of money and stuff. And, of those couple hundred people, how many of those are Bitcoiners? Well, 10, you know what I mean? So, we're in a very small universe of people who could kind of really see both angles here. Mm-hmm. And so I sort of felt, okay, I'm going to just say something and see how it goes. And then I was sort of proven right with this ETF, and I was sort of thinking, okay, maybe that's it. I'll just stop videos and stuff. And then I just said, you know what? It's kind of interesting. I'm enjoying a little bit being in the limelight, and so I'll continue and I'll talk about other things. And I've sort of talked mainly about things like the power law and things that were interesting to me from my math background. Mm-hmm. I have a PhD in math from Stanford. Mm-hmm. And so, a lot of things, again, which may not fit the normal Bitcoin maxi narrative, but for me, were just very obvious. And so, I've kind of, I think I've had a role in kind of bringing that to the forefront of the discussion. And I've basically brought out this guy Giovanni, who's an astrophysicist from Italy, and then another astrophysicist friend of mine, Stephen Perrinode, who's also a Bitcoiner. So I think one of the things we did and we're continuing to do is let's look at all this math and stats stuff really carefully, and let's try to see what kind of pattern, what we know from all this, right? And I feel like a lot of Bitcoiners they're sort of very sloppy with math. So, for example, they're sort of saying halvenings, it's a supply shock. Okay, well, let's quantify that. How much of a supply shock is this? How much of Bitcoin is left to be mined every year? As a percentage of total Bitcoin. Well, right now it went from 0.8% per year to 0.4%. Okay. So do we really believe that 0.4% supply differential per year is going to make that much of a difference in price? I don't, right? I just don't think that that's a significant enough thing. But a lot of people aren't really looking at the numbers in a very quantitative way. And so I feel like, one of the things I can add to the discussion is trying to quantify things a little bit better from a point of view of a guy who's been in has that background, right? And B, I've been involved in quantitative models on Wall Street and just in general for a very long time, so I can recognize things when things are very unique and when things aren't. And I can tell you, Bitcoin is very unique. It's not your average thing at all.
As we just heard, Fred Krueger discussed the onset of Bitcoin's fourth bull market and the influence of institutional players through the ETF. Now let's hear him elaborate on how this will impact Bitcoin's adoption and price projections. With liquidity at record lows and the ETF rollout in focus, we may be entering a game-changing period for Bitcoin holders. Let's listen to Fred Krueger's insights.
Start with this power law, okay, which is, the concept that everybody kind of got wrong, which is something that got popular in about 2019, 2020, which was the stock to flow model, right? Now, if you really look at the stock to flow model, and I could go on for a long time but it's basically incorrect, okay? And there's a lot of problems with the math and the stock to flow model. However, there is a model which is actually pretty much bulletproof, which is this power law model. And the power law model says very simply, let's plot the price of Bitcoin in log terms, okay? And let's look at it also relative to the time since the Genesis block in the log terms. It's important to have both of those axes be in log terms. Now, if you do that, you notice that it's more or less oscillating around a straight line. And if you do a regression to that straight line, you find that the fit is the R squared is 97%. Okay. So that's the first clue that, okay, this is something really amazing. Because if you get a 97% R squared, this is not a coincidence. Now, the amazing thing is this happens over a period from when Bitcoin was at 10 cents to when Bitcoin was at $73,000, right? So you have 6 orders of magnitude of growth, right? From 10 cents to $73,000, almost $100,000, right? And yet the logarithms follow this linear slope with 97% correlation. Okay. Now, if you told me that any relationship like that in finance has a 97% correlation over 6 orders of magnitude, I would say you found the holy grail, right? Yeah. And yet this is true. It's a fact, right? So I think the first reason why I have conviction is I believe in this power law. I do think that this is sort of statistically how Bitcoin price is evolving. And furthermore, we can even talk about why this is happening. And the why of this is that Bitcoin adoption is also growing like a power law, right? It's growing like a power law. And so the important thing about a power law is the power, right? So at what power is this growing? And roughly it's growing at t to the power 6. Okay. So as time goes by, it's not going at the square of time. It's not growing at the cube of time. It's growing to the 6th power of time, right? That's roughly how fast Bitcoin is growing. So you have this crazy, almost exponential growth, right? Not quite exponential, but it's almost exponential. And so a good way to think of it right now is Bitcoin's growing at about 40% per year. That's sort of the trend line Bitcoin. Now, around this, there's tremendous volatility, right? And if you look at it in sort of normal space, it almost makes no sense. It's sort of like, okay, it went up a lot in 2017, it crashed. It went up a lot in 2020, it crashed. Okay, now it's back. Okay, what do you make of this? It just seems like a, complete just sort of random event, right? But if you look at it in log terms, you see, no, there's a very clear pattern, right?
Fred shared compelling insights into why this bull market could surpass all previous ones, particularly with the introduction of the new Bitcoin ETF. We'd love to hear your thoughts on a few questions. How do you think the upcoming election will affect Bitcoin's market? Will institutional adoption be the primary driver of future price increases for Bitcoin? For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.